In this week's episode, I'm joined by Anna DeShawn, she, her, founder and podcaster, E3 Radio and The Qube. This week, we're talking about Tokyo's big bet on work-life balance with a 4-day work week, how Lego is building inclusion one brick at a time, the Vatican's rainbow-hued welcome during Holy Year, and more. Hey there, my name is Bernadette Smith, and I'm a keynote speaker and writer. My pronouns are she and her. Welcome to 5 Things in 15 Minutes, my weekly show where I bring good vibes to DEI. That is good vibes to diversity, equity, and inclusion with a little dash of corporate social responsibility. What I found is there are lots of news stories about what's going wrong in the world and lots of negative data. But there are also a lot of things going right. That's what I like to focus on. I search for stories that we can be inspired by and learn from. My hope is to inspire you to experiment with some of these actions and policies to help you build a more inclusive world. Let's get started. Welcome to the show, Anna. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I have watched this before, so it's good to be a part.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, please tell folks a little bit about yourself and what you're up to with The Qube and E3 Radio.
For sure. I'm Anna DeShawn. Pronouns, anything respectful is amazing. I'm a social entrepreneur. I'm a community organizer. I'm a storyteller. And I am passionate about telling stories of the most underestimated amongst us. LGBTQ stories, those of folks of color, those of women and non-binary individuals who don't often get heard, get politicized, but their stories aren't heard. And I do believe storytelling is a window into all of our humanities. And so I think it's just a beautiful way for us to make the world a little bit smaller. And so I'm deeply passionate about that.
I love it. You also host a storytelling open night in Chicago as well. You've been inducted into the Chicago LGBTQ Hall of Fame. Like, you are a local legend around here, Anna.
That's still very bizarre to hear. Appreciate it. Part of that. It is still very bizarre. But grateful for the entire journey, right? I feel like I have so much life to live. It's very bizarre about the Hall of Fame and being 41. So it's, I feel like I've got a whole journey 2, 3, 4 left in me. And I hope that I continue to make the community proud here in Chicago by telling our stories.
Absolutely. So let's, you kind of inspired my introduction to this week's 5 Things when, I just had a birthday last week. I was reflecting on my birthday and sort of what I was impacted by the most this year personally, which was just letting more love into my life, that I'm capable of giving, that I'm capable of receiving, focusing more on my relationships, my family, chosen and otherwise. And, you wrote recently about family as you unveiled your merch line. And I wanted to, it's a term that you use a lot. So I just wanted to hear your sort of take on family and what does that mean? And what does it mean now, especially?
Yeah, to me, family means I get you and I got you. Mm-hmm. We may not get along. Like, family is real, right? Family is complicated. It's beautiful. Maybe you see each other 2, 3 times a year. Maybe you haven't talked in a decade. Okay. But when things go down or things hit the fan, things are not going right. The family comes together despite all of those things, despite any differences we may have, because I get you and I got you. This, I believe, is exactly where the LGBTQ community is right now, especially as it pertains to our trans siblings out here in the world. Things are not right. Right. Yeah. And it's somebody who is living at the intersections of so many of these identities that are continued to be politicized and demonized out here in the world. Things are not going right. And for us to continue to act as if though they are is problematic. And so for me, family, when I enter a story or intro my podcast or my work with that, it is me saying and setting the stage, like, we all here because we get each other and we got each other. And I just feel like it helps to level set what we're about to do right here.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love that. and people respond to it. I think people associate you with that now, right? And I think it's what we need. We need family, we need togetherness, and we need in the work in your intro, you were talking about stories, and I think that stories are where it's at. I'm currently taking a stand-up class for women, and it's really fun just playing with my stories, right? And hearing the response to my stories. And I'm a speaker, so the stories that I tell matter as well. So I think that stories are how we build empathy, and how we can really create meaningful change. Can you talk a little bit about some of the stories you tell, and some of the why behind the stories you tell in your work?
Absolutely. I'd love to talk about my work. We can be here all day. But seriously, I have 2 media companies. So E3 Radio is the baby. She is the foundation of it all. Started her in 2009 to amplify LGBTQ stories that were happening around Chicago. Because I just didn't feel like anybody was covering it in the way in which I wanted to cover it. And that is on the radio. And so we did, and we started telling those stories. It's evolved. It's been lots of things. Today, we show up in the world as an online radio station. We play queer artists all day long, quite literally. And then we have the Queer News Podcast, which is the podcast that I host. It's an award-winning podcast. And I share 3 to 4 queer news stories that I think you should know about that need to be amplified. And it really brings me great joy because, to your point, and because of what you're doing, right? These good news stories do not get the attention they deserve. Bad news travels fast.
That's right.
It don't take nothing for some drama to make its way around the internet. And I think that's very easy to do. But I think it's harder to tell the good things and to have people empathize with issues that maybe don't directly affect them, but do affect humanity, does affect culture, may affect somebody that they love, right? But they just don't know about it. And I think there's no better time, or maybe even there's no more important time than right now to be informed if you are one of the populations in which Trump is going to go after. Like you need to be informed about what's happening in and around you. This is not a time to be disconnected. So that's one set of stories. And then the other side is that I really love podcasting. I think it's a beautiful way to tell stories. And I think it's a beautiful way to connect with your people. And I started a company called The Qube, where we curate the best Black and brown pods into a platform that you can go find and discover. I've been debating, Bernadette, like what this looks like. I've been like, is this like matchmakers for podcasters? I don't know. Let's match you up with your next favorite podcast. I'm not sure, but I want people to be able to discover these podcasts and this content that's out here in the world that literally they cannot find.
Yeah, I love that. And you're fundraising for The Qube, is that right?
I'm always fundraising. Pick a link, any link. But right now with The Qube, I'm excited about growing our Substack. We're starting a newsletter because the internet is wild. And I want people to be able to get this information in their inboxes and not rely on social media to provide it. So we're doing that. We're going to start these in-person events here in Chicago in 2025. And they're going to be fantastic. They're going to be called podcast salons with Anna DeShawn. And we're going to highlight podcasters who are the most underestimated amongst us. Whatever you think that means, that's exactly what it is. And I'm looking forward to doing that and meeting people in real life again and doing what we talked about earlier, Bernadette, which is getting back to community, right? Leaning into people and those around us, because that's what we need right now. So that's where I'm at, but please feel free to make a donation anywhere you see a link. Okay. Let's go.
All right. Well, let's get into this week's good vibes. All right. The first story this week comes from right here in Cook County, Illinois, which has a new initiative offering free doula services to nearly 1,000 pregnant patients, aiming to address alarming racial disparities in maternal health. So the idea is to reduce premature births, reduce C-section rates, and this project gets $1 million a year for this. So I love it.
I think it's fantastic. If you know the data, maternal child and health as it pertains to Black women and brown women is abysmal. It's awful. It's a public health crisis. And so when I saw that story, I was like, oh, that's amazing. I also know about the Chicago Volunteer Doulas. I know a couple of sisters in that organization. And I just think it's fantastic. People need alternatives. The state of healthcare in this country, there's so many reasons why women need an advocate in the room on one of the scariest times of their life, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's wonderful.
Absolutely. And it's going to save lives. It's going to save the lives of Black and brown women. So, I mean, it's so important. I would love to see other cities adopt it or the counties adopt it. Okay, the second story this week is, sometimes these stories I'm like, wow, all right, here we go. For the first time, the Vatican will host a pilgrimage for LGBTQ plus Christians, allies, and families during the 2025 Jubilee. I went to Catholic school for most of my childhood, so that's why I'm sort of mind blown. So set for September 6th, the event includes a prayer vigil, mass, and a visit to St. Peter's Basilica, and it's the first time that LGBTQ plus folks have been explicitly invited to this event, this pilgrimage.
I think it's something. I mean, it's tough. This Pope is tough. I'm not Catholic. I grew up Lutheran. We kind of like cousins. Okay. I don't know. I think it's great. I think the idea of it is great. But this Pope is also there's gay slurs that have happened. And then all of a sudden he's like, y'all are welcome here. I will bless y'all, but y'all can't get married, but I'll bless you, which was another step forward. I feel like I'm playing seesaw with this Pope.
Yep.
But every time he's doing something a little bit more than anybody has ever done, ever. And I think to many queer Catholics, it means a whole heck of a lot. And so I hope that this is everything that they needed to be. As someone who is a spiritual person, deeply connected to my spiritual practice, if this is good for some queer Catholics, I'm here for it.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. It is. It really is. For some people, I know it will be incredibly validating.
Yeah.
Okay, the third story this week comes from Lego, which is breaking barriers with new characters wearing the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Lanyard, an international symbol for non-apparent disabilities. So these characters will be in 3 upcoming sets, including the Heart Lake City Airport and First Time at the Airport, to help promote and understand visibility. Wow, I love this.
It's cool, right? I learned something. Right. I didn't know that there was an international symbol for this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that there is. Thank you to whoever created it and thought about it and told somebody else about it, right? I think it's fantastic. There's so many ways in which we show up in the world. People have all types of things going on. I grew up learning the saying, it goes, dang it, I lost it.
The one I grew up with was, don't judge someone unless you've walked a mile in their shoes. That's the one my mom used to say.
That's a good one. That's a real good one, too. We're going to go with your mom. If it comes back to me before we finish this, I'm going to say it again. But here it is. You don't know what someone is going through.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
You treat everybody the same and with respect because you have absolutely no idea what they're going through. And there's so many hidden disabilities out here in the world. So I love that there's a symbol for it.
Yeah, now that you know that there's this sunflower lanyard thing, start looking for it. You'll see it. There are people walking around airports wearing it, people at events and conferences wearing the sunflower lanyard. So now you'll start seeing it more often, I'm sure. Okay, next story is from Tokyo. This is an interesting story. So, to combat a plummeting birth rate, Tokyo is piloting a 4-day work week for government employees starting in April. So this policy is paired with a childcare partial leave policy to help working parents balance careers and family life with an overall goal to increase the fertility rate. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but, it ultimately is a good thing because 4-day work weeks do promote a lot of great wellness.
Yeah.
A lot of great balance. And they're better for companies, too. More productivity.
I think everybody's going to win in this situation.
Yeah.
Companies, people, I think everybody's a winner here.
I love the good win-wins. That's how I try to approach this work.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So good news out of Tokyo. We'll see what other cities do something similar with their governments. Okay, the last story this week is new data that shows that female representation on corporate boards has nearly tripled since 2010. Women are now holding 26% of board seats globally, but more data about the financial results. These boards with more women outperform, delivering 2.5 higher returns in developed markets and reduced volatility in emerging markets. So more and more data to promote the business case of DEI, which I think we need to lean into right now. People need to be convinced again. I hate to say it.
They do, right? And data like this is important. But I think what also is important is how we tell it, right? I think this is where, y'all, I do news, okay, all day. So much of it comes back to politics for me. But politically, Democrats are really terrible at telling the story. It wasn't until VP Kamala Harris got into the race that you felt like communication was in this century, right? I think when it comes to good news like this, we experience it again. How do you tell the story about women on boards and women equaling DEI and say, you better with us here? And you already know that because we run absolutely everything in your life. But in this context as well, we're really smart here. We're really strategic here. We're really beneficial. You're better with us, right, than without us. It's wild that this is something that needs to be told again, because once again, women in their lives are literally running absolutely everything. But here we are. So I think it's about how we tell it. I think we're entering a time, and we've been in a time, but seriously, marketers and storytellers are the most valuable people amongst us, because we need to be able to tell people that and be proud about it, right? And find and tell it in such a way that can actually reach people. That's what we need to be doing. Reaching the people who you haven't reached, or the unreachable.
Yeah, absolutely. And people, I think we need to get influential people to understand how to tell their own stories. I have a workshop for that, by the way. All right. It's been great having you on the show, Anna. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's get into this week's Good Vibes to Go. I'll share my Good Vibe to Go, and then I'll invite you to share yours. Okay, so this week's my Good Vibe to Go is I'm buying some holiday gifts from Free From, which is a social enterprise where 100% of every purchase helps survivors of gender-based violence build wealth, safety, and power through handcrafted products. So I just learned about this organization, and it's really about gender-based violence as an economic issue. And so this nonprofit is helping folks get back on their feet financially as they escape gender-based violence. And your Good Vibe to Go, Anna?
I mean, you can't get more feel good vibe than that. My Good Vibe to Go is that we just launched our merch store. Ooh. And you mentioned family, and that is our number one seller. So if family means something to you, visit our store. We actually have a sweatshirt that says "Tell Your Story." So if that resonates with you, it's our limited edition for December. It's going to be gone in 13, 15. I don't know. It's going to be gone soon. So get it today, and use a discount code 5 things.
5 things.
5 things. That's a discount code.
Number 5 things. Okay.
That's it. 5 things, you get 5% off. Okay. Believe me, it's worth it.
I'll have to tell Heather, get one of those sweatshirts for my stocking.
Yeah, exactly. You feel me? That's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So visit queermedia.myshopify.com and visit our website, e3radio.fm.
All right. We'll make sure that gets all put in the show notes. Thanks, Anna. How can folks get in touch with you?
Oh, follow me at Anna DeShawn at your favorite, social media network. And you can find me, AnnaDeShawn.com, E3 Radio, The Qube. I'm everywhere.
You sure are. And I really enjoyed your coverage of the DNC. So good stuff. Anna is a great producer follow what they're up to, and thank you so much for being on the show. Folks, if you don't already get the 5 Things newsletter, you can subscribe at 5thingsdei.com. Have a great week. Thank you for listening to 5 Things in 15 Minutes. I hope you found yourself inspired by at least one of this week's stories. If you did, would you mind sharing it with a colleague and leaving us a review on your favorite podcasting platform? And if you don't already get my 5 Things newsletter, join at 5thingsdei.com. I'm Bernadette Smith, and I'll see you next week right here for 5 Things in 15 Minutes, bringing good vibes to DEI.